Hi, my name is Sasha. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I have my worst books of 2019 video. This is a bit late. I wanted to post this yesterday, but I've just not been feeling well, depression-wise, anxiety-wise, and so that makes it worse when I'm posting a contentious video about books that other people might like and I didn't like. So I'm kind of just sitting here dreading this, but you know, we're all adults. Well, most of us, I hope. I don't know. You could be watching this and you're like 15, but we're all mature here. I think reading kind of lends you a little bit of maturity, and we can all admit that we all have different opinions, and having a different opinion doesn't mean that I'm trashing you for liking one of these books. So, if I say a book that is the worst and you believe that book is great, that's fine. Um, we're just gonna have to agree to disagree. So the first book on this list is Obsidian by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This was such a disappointing book. It's the third book in the Illuminae Files series, and I just wanted so much more. It just recycled the same things from the first two books, but made it worse somehow. Like, I appreciate the things that it said about war and how war is not black and white, and that war is just ugly on all sides. But it ends there. Everything else was boring and overdone and just cheap, and what I hate is getting through a series to read the last book and be supremely disappointed. Like, that's the worst feeling in the world, because I spent so much time appreciating this series, and then to get to Obsidian and to just be so let down sucked. And this book sucked, honestly. I just hated it. And I hated the romance. I hated like so many elements of this book. But yeah, that's why it's on here. It's the worst. The next book on here is An Anonymous Girl by Sarah Pekkanen and Greer Hendricks. This one was so boring. I wanted a lot out of this book. The premise is really interesting. It's about this girl who's low on money, who gets selected for this, like, what are those called? Like, trial? No. Oh, shit. Come on, it's like on the tip of my tongue. Okay, it's like one of those things where you get selected to, like, you get asked questions and you get money at the end. Anyway, she goes to take the questions and she gets a response like, we want you to come back in for more questions. It basically, this woman is pulling for a certain, whoever's behind it is pulling for a very certain type of girl, and it's a thriller, and it was not thrilling. It was not. There was no shocking elements. I predicted every single thing that was going to happen. I was so disappointed. Like, I don't read a lot of thrillers, not because I don't like them, but because they're just not something I pick up most of the time, and I really wanted something like fast paced and like interesting, and this was not. This was like a book about like cheating and like getting back at cheating partners, and it was so boring. It was just so boring, and that's criminal for a book to be boring to me. It's just, a book should never be boring, but this was, and it's the worst. Next on here is one that I'm really sad to say, and that is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I hated this book. I really hated it. It was, so it's like one of my biggest pet peeves in books is when there's this huge buildup, like it's like 80% of the book, and the last 20% is absolute shit. And that's exactly what Pet Sematary is. is, I know a lot of people have said, oh, it's so creepy and like there's so much like weird stuff going on. I didn't care. It wasn't weird or creepy to me. Maybe I've desensitized myself by watching a lot of horror movies and reading a lot of horror books, but this was so not horrific or scary or thrilling or anything. There was just nothing interesting about this book. And maybe it's because I already knew what was going to happen because I seen like the 1989 is it or adaptation, and I already knew what was going to, like, the big shocking part, and then the ending. Like, I knew all that. So maybe this was not the book I should have read, but it just let me down real bad. So, yeah. Next is one I read with the Year of Horror Book Club run by Chapter Stacks. And the Year of Horror Book Club is supposed to be some of the most disturbing books that have ever been written. And this book is In the Miso Soup by Ryu Murakami. This is another book where there is so much build up to absolutely nothing, except the absolutely nothing is what happens is disgusting. Like, it's revolting, and it's not scary, it's just misogynistic and nasty and awful. And I don't know how much more I can go into detail without, like, this video getting, like, not copyrighted, but, like, somebody reporting it. Because what happens in this book, the big scene that it leads up to is just gross. It's gross and nasty, and that's not how I like my horror. I don't, like, I'm okay with gore, but I don't like just freaking disgusting shit. Like, that was awful. And the rest of the book, it was creepy, but it wasn't like something I enjoyed reading. It wasn't enjoyable. It was just an overall unenjoyable experience, and I wouldn't recommend it. The last book is one I actually read in December, and that is Becoming Abagail by Chris Abani. This was, I've talked about it before, and I'm going to do a review of it, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but it was, first of all, just like a tragedy porn. Like, so much bad stuff happens to Abagail, and it's for what? Like, there's no, like, higher meaning. There's no, like, moral of the story. It's just bad things happen to her. Sorry, Abigail, I guess your life is just shit. And then there's just some nasty scenes in this book that really, like, rubbed me the wrong way. Content warning for suicide, and maybe you'll want to skip ahead to the end. But there's a scene where her father hangs himself, and he pees himself because, you do that when you're dying. She licks up his pee and rolls around in it. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, who? Maybe it was to show that she was, like, a disturbed human being, but come on. That's just, who puts that in a book? I don't understand. I could not process that. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And there's other similar scenes in this book that were just gross and that made me very uncomfortable, and I did not like it. I gave it 2 stars because the writing was very beautiful, but other than that, it was very unenjoyable. I did not like it. So, yeah, that was pretty short, like I said it would be. That was only 5 books. I had a pretty good reading year. I did not have a lot of books that I hated, but these were the ones that I did hate. And, so yeah, hopefully 2020 I'll have even less books that I hated, and then were the worst books. Hopefully I won't have any worst books. Hopefully at the end of 2020 I can come on this channel and say, I don't have any worst books of 2020 because 2020 was like the best reading year ever for anyone. But until then, That's all from me for now. I will see you in the next video. Bye!